Hi there, and welcome to Sustainable Brand Index 2025 Sweden. So happy to be with you to present this year's result. This is a special year. This is the 15th year that we are performing Sustainable Brand Index. And as I think many of you know, we started in Sweden. So this is the 15th year in Sweden. 2011, that's when we launched the study, and it's quite a long time. And there is, of course, many things to reflect upon over this period of time, which we're going to do today. We're going to look at not only what's happened over the past year, but also what has changed and hopefully improved over these 15 years of Sustainable Brand Index. My name is Eric. I'm the founder of the study, Sustainable Brand Index. I'm also the founder of SB Insight, the company behind the study. I'm going to walk you through this webinar today. We're going to talk about the key insights from the Swedish market and also putting it a bit in context with the other Nordic markets. We are going to talk about the consumer, of course, the consumer behaviors, how those have changed over time, short term, long term. We're going to talk about sustainability communication, greenwashing, of course. We have to push that in there. And then last but not least, we're going to release the 2025 ranking, the most sustainable brands according to Swedish consumers. Which is going to be exciting. We're going to look at the industry winners, the top 10, the brands that have climbed the most, and so on. So I think let's just go, yeah? Before we get too excited, no, it's fine, go ahead. But before we get into it, I do think there's a need to refresh, or even for the new ones listening today, talk about the what and the how of Sustainable Brand Index. And to do this, I've actually decided to recycle myself from last year, saving the energy. I'm a big fan of circularity, so I'm saving the energy, and I'm going to let you listen to myself from last year talking about the what and the how and a bit of the history of Sustainable Brand Index. So Eric, 24, take it away.
We have been doing this for a long time now. We started out in Sweden back in 2011. Then 2 years later, we went into the Norwegian market, the Danish market, and the Finnish market. In 2017, we expanded into the Netherlands as well. And then since 2020, we're also in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So all in all, 8 markets today. Sustainable Brand Index is today Europe's largest independent brand study on sustainability. We're very proud of that. And every year, we interview more than 80,000 respondents about how they perceive more than 1,600 brands in these markets. So, how do we do it? How do we perform Sustainable Brand Index? That's a very good question. Let me walk you through the 4 stages of it. Number 1, desk research. We put a massive amount of time every year into looking around us, basically. What is happening in the market? What are key developments that we see? Economy, politics, social trends, etc. And of course, what are the sustainability topics that we see emerging among consumers and in society in general? So this is a lot of work, just looking around us and gathering that. And this is super important input that goes into the web surveys that we perform in the later stages. Stage number 2, web survey number 1. This is where we take all the insights and the results from the desk research stage and we put into a web survey where we want to interview consumers. We work with Norstat as our main supplier of consumer respondents. We access their panels and we ask our questions, basically. And web survey number 1 is very much about 2 things. It's brand assessments. What do people think about the brands from a sustainability perspective? And also some overarching consumer indicators regarding sustainability attitudes and sustainability behaviors. Stage number 3, web survey number 2. Having done web survey number 1, we collect the data, we look at it, we analyze it, and we see, maybe there are things here we want to examine further. If so, we put that into web survey number 2. On top of that, we also look at the in-depth perspective for each brand. So we analyze, or rather we interview consumers about between 25 to 30 different areas for the brand? What are the key drivers behind the perception of the specific brand when it comes to sustainability? Stage number 4, last but not least, turning data into insights. This is really the most important part, according to me. This is where we take the data from Web Survey 1 and Web Survey 2 and of course combine it with 14 years of having performed Sustainable Brand Index. So the amount of data is vast, and now we have to make sense of it. And this is what we do. And one part of that is really generating insights that we're going to share today in this webinar. And the other part is really tailored insights relevant for the brands on the list that we provide to them.
I could not have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Eric24. Great job. Quite pale, to be honest, but hey, nothing to do about that. Now that you got a bit of the what and the how about Sustainable Brand Index, let's actually dig into it. First out is the key insights of Sustainable Brand Index 2025 Sweden. Okay, this first one I'm actually very excited about, and I think this is a very positive thing we're seeing now. So what we're looking at here is the interest in sustainability among Swedes, general people, regular people. And I mean, first of all, long-term trend since 2013 up until 25, you can see that it's gone up over time, and I'm always the one emphasizing the long-term trend. That's what I'm always looking at. So that's a good thing. And I mean, this is basically what we're looking at here, just to be very clear. This is the share of consumers talking about and discussing sustainability with friends, family, acquaintances, and so on. So basically, there's a foundation of an interest, so to speak. And as you can see, and what I've also tried to highlight is that if you look at the period 2013 until 2020 or 21, you can see that it was fluctuating quite a bit. If we look at the Nordic markets, the other Nordic markets, our neighbors, we do see that it's exactly the same, even a bit more fluctuation actually, but basically fluctuating, depending on what's happening in the world. For example, the Paris climate meeting in December 2015, really impacting the number for 16, very high there, as you can see. And then after that, we had Donald Trump coming in for his first term of presidency, putting it down a bit, sustainability a bit less on the agenda for people. Then we have Greta, and of course, not only Greta, but the activism. You probably remember there's a lot of focus on the climate issue from that group, so to speak. And then, of course, we had the pandemic coming in and pushing it down a bit again. So basically, what happened in the world, the macro perspective, really impacted whether people talked about it or more or less, so to speak. And as you might guess here, because I've also added the green part here to the right, between 21 and 25, the past 5 years, it's very encouraging to see that the fluctuation is actually very, very small this time. It's more or less not fluctuating. It's very stable, and this is not because there's been a lack of significant events in the world. I think we can all agree on that. Obviously, the war in Ukraine breaking out in 22, the economy going for the worse since a few years back, and of course Donald Trump being elected and now entering his second term, which is bit of a turmoil, to say the least. But still, sustainability is stable, the interest is stable, and it's integrated. And I think that's really something we should be very happy about, because it is the new normal. Sustainability is the new normal. People expect it from companies, from other stakeholders, and it's really, again, the new normal. And I think we should be very happy about this and see that it's integrated. And of course, that's another phase in the work with the sustainable transformation. So talking about sustainability is one thing. Of course, what do they talk about? That's also interesting to dive a bit into. And we can actually see it here. If you look to the right here, you can see that I've added the topics that are the recurring ones for consumers, basically in Sweden. And you can see, not a surprise, war and conflicts leading, of course, 58%. As you can see, that is the same in all the countries that we do the study in, for obvious reasons. That's a big topic, big focus. Climate change, 48% in Sweden, very high, still very high in the neighboring countries as well, but 48%, it's definitely higher. So that's a good thing. You can see circular economy, energy efficiency, so many environmentally and climate related aspects that come out very high. But I mean, as you can see, I've color coded it here a bit, so you can see the orange ones are a bit of the more maybe macro perspective, war, democracy, those kind of things. Whereas we can see that the green ones are obviously more environmentally related, and the blue ones are a bit social governance focus. And it is a bit of a spread, I would say. And there are definitely things, but in that deviate for Sweden. But in general, it's very similar to the Nordic neighbors. And once you've started looking at or ended this webinar, after this, you can also go into the official report. Obviously you will, and you can also play around a bit with the data to see, okay, what's the difference between the countries. So hopefully you'll appreciate that new feature in the official report this year. And here we have them, our consumer behavior groups. You probably recognize them, hopefully. These are the groups that we have been following since 2013 in Sustainable Brand Index every year in all the countries. And basically, very briefly to explain it to you, these are based on values and behaviors rather than attitudes, because as we all know, in sustainability, what you say that you do, that's somewhere over there, and what you actually do, it's somewhere over there. So there is a big gap there, and that's why we want to look at this. So basically, very briefly again, in the base, this was actually an observational study, looking at how people behave and then asking them questions to see, you know, what are their characteristics and traits and so on. Then we have been following these characteristics and traits over time. So also going through them a bit, you can see them here, the names: ego, moderate, smart, dedicated. Always very important to emphasize. Again, we don't go around asking people, excuse me, are you ego? Because then we would have maybe 2% there. But basically ego, as you might guess from the name, a lot of focus on, you know, what's in it for me only. If you talk about attributes, maybe price, function, service, etc., but really focus on, like, you know, I want this to work for me, and also very focused on, you know, what's happening around me in my immediate environment, basically. So not very into sustainability as such, specifically not the terms, the words. They don't like talk about sustainability. They don't like climate change and those kind of things. Is a bit politically correct in their eyes. However, there are definitely aspects of what we would define as sustainability that they appreciate a lot. For example, having a living countryside, having domestic production, having good working conditions in Sweden in this case, and so on. But of course, a lot of focus on the immediate environment, the national perspective. Then you have the moderate group, the big one, the lagom in Sweden. And this is, of course, a group, I would say the key characteristic here, because there are several things, but the main thing is, you know, this is a follower group. This is a group that starts to change when others do. So they look a lot at the next group, the smart group, and then maybe if they see that, okay, people are behaving like this, maybe I should do as well. So that's their trait. And you're going to see it, and you probably know it, some of you. It's a very big group, so you got to have them on board, basically. Sorry. The smart group, now we're getting into the progressives, the more progressive consumers. The smart group, this is a group that is smart, obviously, and can balance, you know, what's in it for me and what's in it for the world, society, environment, and so on. So this is a group that actually knows that this equation is actually, you know, we can make it work. So they're a bit more fact focused. They can handle a bit more fact, not too much though, about sustainability. But they also, of course, want this: what's in it for me, health, service, quality. They are very, you know, focused on getting the value as well. So we cannot compromise optimize that, but definitely a balance. And they're also very into the topic of climate change specifically. That's something that has grown for this group over the past few years. And then last and least, the dedicated group, the blue one here. This is the group that you might guess from the name, and you might know it, and you might belong to it. That they are, sustainability is everything. That's, always number one on top of the list, key priority basically. So this is the group that, it's a small group. You want to, you know that, and you will see it. But basically, you don't want to have them against you because they're quite, they might be small, but they are, people listen to them, and they're also quite active on social media and other platforms as well. Looking at the ego group first, you can see the development here over time, and as you can see, we're back to basics over these past years. 2013, in this case, we can see that we're back to where we started, basically. Which is, of course, you might look at it from different perspective. Maybe not that fun, to be honest, but I think this is a key thing, and you're gonna hear me say this over and over in this webinar and about the other groups as well. That people are slightly who they are, and then they are affected of what's happening around them in the economy, in the political landscape, and then at the end of the day the behavior is fairly stable over time, as you can see here. So we're back at 30%, slight increase since last year of 3 percentage points, and the year before that as well. So definitely a kind of a stable positive development for the group, not necessarily positive development for society. And the moderate group, the big one, as you might remember me saying, Lagom, and this is at 43% at the moment this year, so slight decline this year. I think it might be 1 percentage point or something, very little. So basically neutral development, and I think that's really the key. As you can see over the years here, if you look at 2017, 18 up until today, it is very stable. This is kind of the key big group where people. Where a lot of people end up, so to speak, because they don't really have the time, the energy, the knowledge to engage too much in sustainability, and they do think it's a bit complicated, which it is. And they have a job, they have a family, they have hobbies, they have other things to do, basically, which is also something that is extremely important to take into account. But I mean, again, over time, 48% back down to 43, slight decline, but not that much, honestly. As you can see, still stable. And the smart group, this is the one, as you can see here, it's been fluctuating a bit, at least over time. I mean, we started out in 2013 at 16%, and we're still up. So I think that's a good sign, 21%. And you can see it's a neutral development this year compared to last year. We did have some high points around 25% and even a bit more back in 2017. So definitely a large part of the population, somewhere between 1/5 and 1/4 of the population. Hopefully it'll keep this kind of stable 1/5 of the population, or even going up a bit. But it's I mean, as you can see, fairly stable as well. Again, I feel I'm repeating myself, but this is really the key insight from the behaviors for consumers. Guess what word I will say here? Stable. Yes, of course, over time, if you look at 2013 compared to this year, we're back at 6%. As you can see, we did have a peak in 23 at 10%. Great. Now we're back down to 6%. Given the size of the group, there is, of course, not a huge, or rather, you can say, relatively speaking, that it is a very, very big difference. But from a more, population-wide perspective, not a huge change in that sense. But of course, not fun to see, maybe. But I think one thing that I really want to emphasize when it comes to both the dedicated group and the smart group before is that this is not about, people changing values or suddenly saying, I don't really care about sustainability. I just realized that's not the case. This is about the fact that, as you might guess, looking on the timeline here, 23, 24, 25, the economy has been tougher for everyone and for these groups as well. So basically, not about the values and that they are gone or less strong, but rather about the wallet. They don't have the ability to act the way they probably want to act. So very important to emphasize as well, not about the values, but about the wallet. And again, this is behaviors that we're looking at. So they want to do it, but they don't have the ability, all of them. Summarizing here, maybe I'll mention the word stable once again. But I think again, I'm always the one talking about the long-term perspective, and basically we're a bit back to where we started. Of course, there are definitely some changes. I would say key one is probably that smart has gone up a bit over if you look at the long term, and I think that's a very positive thing. But again, I want to emphasize the fact, two things that I want to emphasize really. One thing is what I just mentioned, that it's not about the values, it's about the wallet. That's one thing, and the ability, and of course the complexity, because it's also tough to act sustainably today. Who to believe, basically. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, it is like this is the way it is. People are, this sounds kind of mean maybe, but people are the way they are, the behaviors are what they are. And I think that's something that you as brands, as companies, have to adapt to, not sit around waiting for, like, okay, when would the dedicated and the smart group be 50% of the market? I'm sorry, I'm telling you, that's not going to happen. So I think that's a key thing to realize and see, okay, how do we adapt to that? How do we adapt products, services, and our way of communicating to that fact that we have to meet people where they are today and tomorrow? So, talking about meeting people where they are, how do we do that? Well, I mean, this is a fictive case, a fictive company. What we're doing here is, let's say we're selling an energy efficient product of some sort. Yeah. So, how do we then address these different groups? We have ego at the top, we have moderate, we have smart, we have dedicated, just to remind you. And this is, of course, a very simple activity, but let's give you an idea, like, how do we talk to them? How do we address them in terms of this? So if you look at the ego one and you want to sell this energy efficient product to them, cuts your electricity cost while keeping performance high. I mean, you focus on what? Functionality and price. That's it. Do you talk about sustainability? No, you don't. So it's focus on, okay, I'm saving money, performance is high. That's something I like as well. So they really focus on the core functionality here, I would say, and the price specifically. If you look at the moderate one, smart choices that keep your bills low without compromising comfort. So a bit of a smart choice, but also, bills low. That's the value for them, without compromising comfort, and having a nice, heating system or whatever at home. So this is a group definitely that is very, bit warmer communication, bit more, convenience and nice, family oriented, and so on. So you get a bit more of the softer approach there as well with the moderate group, but still focusing on the value and keeping the bills low. Getting into the smart group, cutting waste means cutting costs, so better for your wallet and the world. So here we have the balance that I mentioned before. Yeah, what's in it for me, obviously, but also what's in it for the world and the environment in this case. So definitely a bit of both, but you don't forget the cutting cost part. That's still very, very important for this group. And then last, the dedicated group. Efficiency isn't just about saving energy, it's about doing things right. So basically, a bit more idealistic, a bit more very much focus on the sustainability aspects, obviously, but also, value aspect. This is a company that, I like them. They seem to have the same kind of set of values that I do, so to speak. So you focus on that part. So this is a simple exercise, but it gives you an idea, hopefully, about, how do we talk, how do we adapt our sustainability or non-sustainability communication to these different groups. Let's have a look at sustainability communication, and first out, the attitude among Swedes when it comes to, companies talking about sustainability and talking about what they're doing in sustainability. So the attitude: are you positive, are you negative to this phenomenon, basically? And as you can see, again, looking at the long term a bit more, it is a positive trend. We do have a slight decline of positives this year, but as you can see, there was a huge increase last year compared to 2023. So from 47 to 63, very, very, positive. Now it's 55, still higher than the previous years, as you can see. So 55% saying yes, I think it's a good thing that companies talk about sustainability. I want to see it, I like it. And only 18%, slight increase since last year, but again, much lower than it was a few years back. So 18%. So all in all, I would say we have a majority saying yes, sustainability communication, it's a good thing. And why, do you wonder? Well, I'm going to get you that answer as well, because these are the key things that people mention, like why do you think it's a good thing that companies talk about sustainability? And they're fairly, I would say, they're very intuitive in many ways. Sustainability is about our future, so companies must take responsibility and then also talk about it. So taking responsibility or communicating is actually a part of taking this responsibility and actually activating around it. Sustainability communication can inspire positive change in society. I think this is encouraging, because that it's so many choosing that, because that's probably what I think personally is the key thing with communication and sustainability communication, that it can act as a catalyst for change and actually, drive change. The more we talk about it, the more people understand, are interested, and so on. So I think that is also important and encouraging to see that people look at it that way. I want to know what companies do to help me shop more sustainably. Okay, so that's good. They want the advice. They want to see, okay, I like this brand. I want to choose them because they seem to be doing a lot of good things. And then last but not least, it's good to know, even though it maybe not affect me in the way, brands I choose and what I buy and don't buy. It's interesting to know, so to speak. So fairly general things, but still good to know, I would say. Moving into the trust part, and this is where you might see already that this is where we have the challenge. So I mean, the positive attitudes were fairly high, I would say 55%, as you remember. So many people are positive to the fact that companies talk about it. However, when we ask them, okay, let's think a bit about the communication that you see and hear and meet today from companies about sustainability, what do you think about that? And as you can see here, we definitely have a challenge. Yeah, so we're down at 22% this year saying that yes, I actively trust it. That's my going in value when I see communication. Whereas we do have 33%, a slight decline since last year, but still very high. 33% saying that no, I don't trust it. I mistrust it. That's my going in attitude or value when I see communication about sustainability. So we have a third of the population mistrusting, and I think this is a big issue, and it's the same in the other Nordic countries, just to provide some context. So this is not something that is unique for Sweden, but it is, of course, a challenge that needs to be addressed locally, I would say, because, yeah, this is a big challenge. And why, you wonder, why are people mistrusting? Let's have a look. The reason why people mistrust is that first of all, people say it's mostly marketing, not real action, basically greenwashing. So they don't trust that. That's the key one. Companies talk about sustainability to stay politically correct. You can score some points. Basically, that's why you do it. Profit over sustainability. Companies only care about money, so this communication feels fake, basically. And let's just stop here for a while and just summarize these top three. And because I think there's one word that really summarizes them, and that's authenticity. So basically, what people, consumers in this case, lack from companies today is that they don't feel that it's coming from the right place. They don't feel that this is authentic. This is a company doing the right things for the right reasons. Either they think you're not doing it at all, you're just talking about it, or you feel that you're just talking about it to make money. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to talk about it to increase sales. I think that's a key thing when it comes to sustainability, to have the business, the commercialization of it. That's obviously something we need. However, how can we also address the fact that people want to feel that this is authentic, this is something that's coming from the right place? And I think that's a key challenge that you need to address in the coming years, definitely. Moving on, hard to trust, difficult to verify, lots of promises, little evidence of real change. There's been a lot of scandals, so it's hard to trust sustainability communication in general. So I think what are these, especially the first two, hard to trust, and a lot of promises, little evidence. I mean, that's the second keyword here, is transparency. So we have authenticity and we have transparency. So people do want to see some kind of, verification. And this is very interesting to connect, of course, to the upcoming Green Claims Directive from the EU, which is, of course, very much about verifying environmental claims. And I think that's going to be very interesting to see how can this perhaps and hopefully address these concerns that consumers have about companies just saying things without actually, being held accountable for them. So yeah, that's going to be probably and hopefully good. But in general, summarizing a bit here, authenticity and transparency, those are the key issues at the moment. How do people want to be addressed, basically, and how would you like brands to communicate? So I think this is interesting for many reasons, because it's a bit scattered as well. It's not like a clear trend here, but one thing that, as you can see, 1/3 says is, sustainability info should relate to the product I'm buying. I think that it's interesting because we do, maybe not I, but we companies tend to talk a lot about the company, and the corporate communication is very strong. We are a company that's doing A, B, and C, and hence we're great. So a lot of focus on like me, us, whereas consumers actually wondering a bit, excuse me, I'm buying this product, maybe I could get some information about the sustainability aspect of that, and all this great work you're doing as a company. How does that impact the me in the very end, because this is the product that I'm looking for. So I think that is something that is really interesting key takeaway here as well, that you might be focusing sometimes too much on the corporate perspective when the product perspective is in many ways talking about value, which we talked about before. The value is much more relevant. I prefer to look up info myself. I appreciate in-depth sustainability info, so I would say they're pretty interesting to look at together as well. But some people just want to look at themselves. So whereas I want companies to inform me directly, 16% lower, but still there is not a clear trend in that sense. Some people do want to be informed and activated, whereas others just I want to you can make sure that you have the information. I will go to the website or whatever, and then I will look at it myself. So that's also, of course, interesting to balance. When do we push a bit and when do we actually pull a bit, so to speak. So I think that is also very important to take with you today. Yes, and you can see the rest for yourself. But I think hopefully you got some good info, some good insights about how to communicate and how not to communicate. Maybe that's even more important. Let's take a final one. Not a final one like we're done, but final one in this part about sustainability communication. So the key thing that people say when we ask them, okay, what kind of communication do you trust? Like, what do you want to see more of? What is like, this is something that all companies should do. And then it's super clear. Third-party labels. That's what's happening. That's what people mention in Sweden as well as the other countries. So third-party labels, that's the way to go. And that's, not always simple. Again, we have the Green Claims Directive, one part or another purpose of that. Talked about verification now before, but and now the other part of the directive is, of course, very much about the third-party labels floating around, and EU has identified that many of them are not good enough, basically. So I think that is also an interesting thing, that can we clean up this a bit, and can we actually create a third-party label universe that is strong, trustworthy, credible, and because that's what people want as well. And it is, of course, a very, very strong endorsement when you have some kind of credible third-party label. And that's again, that's something that consumers like and value. That's the thing they really want to see, basically. Now it's time to look at the ranking in Sustainable Brand Index 2025 Sweden. However, now I dragged it out a bit. However, I do want to introduce myself again, my old self. I'm much better these days. Talking a bit about what is the ranking and how is it assembled, basically. So let's take a quick listen to Eric 2024 once again.
The Sustainable Brand Index ranking score consists of two major areas. We call them environmental responsibility and social responsibility. So these are the key aspects of the ranking score. The definition that we use are the 17 global goals for sustainable development. So for environmental responsibility, we take the environmentally related goals, and that's what we use as a definition when we ask consumers. And same for social responsibility, we take the socially related goals and put them in the definition as for social responsibility.
Super. Thank you, Eric. Again, I think we got it. If there is, any questions, obviously you can see it in the official report afterwards as well. You can read about it, how it's done, and all of that. So do that in case you feel you're hesitant. But now let's get into it. Let's look at the ranking for 2025. First out, the average ranking score. Sorry to drag it out a bit more, but basically, I think it's just super important to see where are we at from, what's the state of sustainability perception in general in Sweden. And again, the long-term trend, especially if you look between 2013 and 2023, you can see that, there was a positive development. I mean, not very quick, but still positive development over time. More and more people. What does it mean? Well, basically, it means more and more people having an opinion, feeling that, I'm a bit aware of what companies are doing, and many of them also positive to what companies and brands are doing. So that's a good thing. However, as you might remember, last year we did have a huge decline, 16 percentage points from 52 to 36. The reasons twofold. Basically, one thing, confusion. People felt and feel still that they are very confused about, what is sustainable, what is sustainability, who should I trust? They are saying one thing, the others are saying another thing. I don't know who to trust, and I'm just a consumer. I don't have the time for this. Basically, that's one thing. So confusion. The other thing is that if we look at the numbers when we measure the frequency of sustainability communication, like how often do people actually see this type of communication, we can see that 2022 was the peak year, peak sustainability communication. All the brands out there talking about net zero, carbon neutral, you all know all the things, you remember them, 2030, etc., etc. Whereas it's been much less communication from brands and companies over the past few years, and it really, the memory was still there in 23, definitely helped them, but then last year also wearing off, people not remembering basically what companies are doing, where that's usually the case with marketing, as you know. And then this year we're still at the same level. So neutral development this year, not much happening. Same in the other countries as well. Very, very stable this year. So we're virtually at the same level as we were last year. And the differences that we see this year are basically a few brands jumping up and down. And that's what we're going to look at now. Yes, we are, because first out, we're going to look at the top 30 climbers in Sustainable Brand Index 2025 Sweden. So the brands that have climbed the most, basically the most amount of positions in the overall ranking. There are 434 brands in the ranking this year, a bit more than last year. But basically, let's look at the top 30 climbers. And here you have them, the top 30 climbers between 2024-25, unveiling them here. So we have Viking Line, the top climber, 195 positions. That's fantastic. That's half of the ranking, basically. That's incredible. We have Kronfågel, 123. I mean, as you will probably know, chicken brands in general had a tough time over the past 2 years. So now we had a bit of a bounce back. You can also see Guldfågeln in the middle there, 80 spots up. So that's good for them as well. Stena Line. So we have a kind of a trend here. We have Viking Line and we have Stena Line. So the the ferries are doing well this year. Halebop, Wallenstam, property, interesting. We have, it's a bit of a mix, as you can see. We have car brands, we have food brands, obviously a lot. We have beauty, we have hygiene, we have beer, we have, sport brands, etc., etc. So very, very much of a mix, even gambling, to be honest, Mr. Green there. So these are the top 30 climbers in 2025. So congratulations to all of you. And now we're getting closer, and we are about to unveil the industry winners in Sustainable Brand Index 2025. And here they are, here they're coming. So great job by all of these brands. Congratulations so much. We have a lot of same winners as last year. We have SAS in airlines, Volvo in automotive. As you might remember, they have taken over Tesla's top position since a few years back. And I don't see Tesla taking it back anytime soon, to be honest. Swedbank, new winner in banking industry, pushing down Handelsbanken, who was actually the new winner last year. So there's a bit of a fight there in the top of the banking sector. We have Aku coming in as new winner in the beauty category. Kivra pushing down the digital services, pushing down Swish, actually, so taking the lead there. And sorry, I missed Kiviks Musteri, New winner in beverages, pushing down Arvid Nordqvist. So great job by Kiviks Musteri. We have Lantmännen making a huge return in food and actually retaking that position from Änglamark, that was last year's winner of the industry of that category in that industry, and also the overall winner. Which now you might be seeing some interesting. You can guess for yourself now. We do have a new winner this year, but not so fast. We're still going to look at these. We have OKQ8 retaking the lead in fuel. We have Humana, the lead in healthcare providers. We have Clas Ohlson, as you can see. So many brands. I'm just looking. Folksam in insurance, pushing down Länsförsäkringar. They're always battling out. It's kind of like Swedbank, Handelsbanken, and then Länsförsäkringar, Folksam, battling it out in their each respective industries. Yes, and I think I got them all, hopefully. Otherwise, you can complain. But congratulations to all the new and the old winners. And I think it must be said, some of these brands have won their industries for 15 years in a row. That is, of course, very impressive. That's a long time. So congratulations to those as well. And to all the winners in the industries, great job. All right, now we are counting down. Now we're getting into the top 10. I'm going to count down from 10, 10, 9. No, sorry. It's a bad joke. I'm going to count down from 10 the positions. So number 10, 9, 8, etc. Let's get to it. Number 10 in Sustainable Brand Index 2025 is ICA I Love Echo. Congratulations to ICA I Love Echo, number 10, climbing 2 positions since last year, so entering the top 10. Good job. At number 9, we find Fjällräven. Great job. Fjällräven comes in at number 9, climbing 8 positions since last year, entering the top 10. So that is a very, very strong development for Fjällräven. Good job. Number 8. Polisen coming in at number 8, dropping actually a bit. They were number 6 last year, but still in the top 10, which is, of course, a very, very strong position. So congratulations and thank you for everything you're doing. On a more personal note. Great. Let's go into the next one. Number 7, we find Arla. Arla comes in at number 7. Congratulations, Arla, re-entering the top 10, actually climbing 9 positions since last year. So that's a strong, very, very strong development for Arla this year. Great job. And at number 6, we have last year's winner, Änglamark. So dropping a bit, number 1 last year in Sustainable Brand Index 2024, now number 6, but of course still a great, strong performance by Änglamark. At number 5, same position as last year, IKEA. Great job by IKEA, always in the top, on the front runners, always in the top 5 more or less since the very beginning. So congratulations, IKEA. Great job as always. And as number 4, climbing 3 positions since last year, Lantmännen. So as you might remember, all of you, new winner in the food category, pushing down Änglamark, and also number 4 in Sustainable Brand Index. So, climbing back to the very, very top positions, Lantmännen. So congratulations. Okay, now we're into the top 3, the podium. So number 3 in Sustainable Brand Index Sweden 2025 was number 2 last year, Grumme coming in. Still a super strong performance, number 3, great job since entering the study. Always in the very, very top contender. So great job by Grumme, classic sustainable brand. And at number 2, overtaking Grumme is another public brand, Folkhälsomyndigheten. Wow, that's a fantastic feat. It's been in the top since the pandemic, basically. But number 2, I think it's an all-time high for Folkhälsomyndigheten in Sustainable Brand Index. So obviously a super strong brand in the eyes of consumers. Congratulations to Folkhälsomyndigheten. All right, everybody. You know what's happening now. We have the number 1 coming up. How's it gonna go? You know it. We have a new winner. You probably know it. Some of you are, thinking, who is it? Who might it be? Oh, have I forgotten anyone? This is, to be honest, a bit of a personal note here, but this is very well deserved. This is a brand that has, kept on communicating about sustainability, kept on pushing the boundaries over the past few years, and really, activating a lot when other brands have communicated maybe less. This is a brand that has actually, kept on pushing and talking about it. So, well deserved. Number one in Sustainable Brand Index 2025 is Systembolaget. Grattis Systembolaget, nummer 1. Klättrade förra året till nummer 4, vilket var en all time high förra året. Och nu alltså nummer 1. Har aldrig vunnit innan, men nummer 1 i år. Sorry about the Swedish, just wanted it to be a bit authentic. But basically, great job. This is a brand that has been climbing over the past few years, and last year was a top position at number 4, and this year number 1. So great job by Systembolaget. Well deserved. Congratulations. Congratulations, Systembolaget. Great job. Now we're going to summarize a bit. Hopefully you've gotten a lot of insights from this webinar. I'm just going to give you some key takeaways because I think that's always good at the very end. First of all, I mean, we've been doing this for 15 years now, and that gives us a good perspective in evaluating the maturity and the development of sustainability among consumers and brands. And I think one thing that I think is maybe the key one here that I think we should all emphasize and take with us is really that sustainability is the new normal. The interest is there, it's integrated. Doesn't mean people are running around behaving sustainably. That's not what I'm saying at all, but it is there, and people do have demands, people do have expectations. So sustainability is the new normal. Building on that, and just as I mentioned, don't sit around waiting for sustainable behaviors. We have the groups, you remember the behavior groups, you can see the long-term trend, stable. We will have the egos, we will have the moderates, and the smart and dedicated won't take over the world. We have to adapt to that and provide the solutions that are needed. And one of the things that is also super important, hopefully you got that from the communication part today, is, you have to be clear with all these groups, super clear with the value for them, what's in it for me. And probably you heard me say this before, but it is so important, because if you don't talk about the value for them, if you only talk about the value for the climate, the planet, the society, etc., you tend to address only the dedicated group, the small group, the smallest group. So that's not a good thing, to be honest. So keep that in mind. And last but not least, a bit of a more internal insight that I want to share. When I started Sustainable Brand Index in 2011, I reached out to a lot of companies saying, this is what we're doing. Hopefully you like it. Do you want to, get engaged? Do you want to know more? And there were so many companies and brands saying, why? Why would we, no one cares about this. Why would we engage in this? Why is this relevant? And I can tell you, I never get that question anymore. It's always, what can we do and how fast can we do it? So I think that is also a super good switch or development and evolution that has happened. And I'm very happy about that as well. For those of you who are not working with us, hopefully you want to do that. So if you're interested in learning more about our different report solutions, the data report, the analysis report, the strategy report, and the perception versus performance report, where we compare your perception, consumer perception, Sustainable Brand Index, with your actual performance based on your reporting. So that is a very interesting thing. So get in touch if you want to know more about this. And without further ado, it's out. The official report for Sustainable Brand Index 2025 Sweden is out there. Go to our website, you see the link here, and fill out the form, and then you can just get into it. It's a digital report this year, so you can play around a bit, comparing countries and so on. So hopefully you'll appreciate that. And then once you'd entered the form, filled out the form for Sweden in this case, you can also look at the other countries. Some of them are available already, some are coming over the coming days. So Thank you so much for listening. And now, don't sit around here. Go on the link.